The January wind cut through Chicago like a knife made of ice and broken promises. Elena Martinez pulled her worn winter coat tighter around her body as she hurried down Michigan Avenue, her breath forming small clouds that disappeared into the frigid night. The temperature had dropped to 8 degrees, the kind of cold that burned exposed skin and turned tears to ice before they could fall. She was late. Again, her shift at Mercy General Hospital didn't start for another 40 minutes, but the bus route had changed last week budget cuts, they said, and now she had to walk an extra 6 blocks through the business district to catch her connection. 6 blocks that felt like 6 miles when the wind howled off Lake Michigan with the fury of a wounded animal. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Elena checked her phone. 7:23 p.m. If she missed this bus, she'd be late for her shift, and she couldn't afford another warning. Not with rent due in 5 days and her daughter Mia's asthma medication running low. Not with the electric company threatening disconnection and her ex-husband 3 months behind on child support that she'd probably never see. The nursing scrubs under her coat weren't enough. They'd never been enough. But the coat, her burgundy wool coat with the fake fur collar that she'd bought at Goodwill 3 years ago, was all that stood between her and hypothermia. It was threadbare at the elbows, the lining was torn in 2 places, and one button had been replaced with a safety pin. But it was hers. It was warm. It was survival. Elena rounded the corner onto Wacker Drive and nearly collided with him. He sat against the wall of a closed bank, legs stretched out on the frozen sidewalk, wearing nothing but a thin dress shirt and suit pants. No coat, no gloves, no hat. His dark hair was dusted with snow. His lips had taken on a blue tinge, and his hands, God, his hands were so pale they looked almost translucent in the streetlight. But it was his eyes that stopped Elena in her tracks. They were open, staring at nothing, dark as midnight, and somehow still aware, conscious. He was conscious and freezing to death on a Chicago sidewalk, while hundreds of people in their warm cars drove past without a second glance. Elena's nursing instincts kicked in before her common sense could stop her. "Sir?" She knelt beside him, her hand going to his wrist to check his pulse. His skin was ice. "Sir, can you hear me?" His eyes shifted slowly to her face. He tried to speak, but his jaw was locked from the cold, his teeth chattering so violently that words were impossible. Hypothermia. Advanced stage. He had maybe 30 minutes before his core temperature dropped to a point where his organs would start shutting down. "Okay, listen to me," Elena said, her voice taking on the calm, authoritative tone she used with critical patience. "We need to get you warm. Is there someone I can call? Family? Friends?" He managed the smallest shake of his head. No one. Elena looked around desperately. The bank was closed. The Starbucks across the street had shut down an hour ago. There was a restaurant 2 blocks up, but moving him that far in his condition could be dangerous. His body was already struggling to maintain core temperature. Forcing him to walk might push him into cardiac arrest. She pulled out her phone, her fingers clumsy with cold, and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? I have a male, approximately 30 to 35 years old, showing signs of severe hypothermia at the corner of Wacker and Michigan. He's conscious but non-responsive, possible frostbite on extremities, needs immediate transport to, the dispatcher's voice cut through, professional but strained. "Ma'am, we're experiencing extremely high call volume due to weather conditions. Current wait time for non-life-threatening emergencies is approximately 45 minutes to an hour. This is life-threatening," Elena said sharply. "He's going to go into shock if we don't. All available ambulances are responding to priority calls. I've logged your location and someone will be there as soon as possible." The line went dead. Elena stared at her phone, rage and helplessness warring in her chest. 45 minutes. He didn't have 45 minutes. She looked down at the man. He was watching her with those dark, intelligent eyes, and even through the haze of hypothermia, she could see him calculating, understanding, accepting that he might die on this sidewalk because the system was overwhelmed and no one else cared enough to stop. Elena made a decision, the kind of decision that her mother would have called foolish, that her ex-husband would have mocked, that every ounce of hard-won survival instinct screamed against. But it was also the kind of decision that her daughter would understand, because Mia, at 7 years old, still believed that people should help each other, still believed that kindness mattered more than self-preservation. Elena stood up and began unbuttoning her coat. "What are you doing?" The words came from behind her. An elderly woman had stopped, clutching her designer purse, her face a mixture of concern and judgment. That man could be dangerous. That man is dying, Elena said flatly. She shrugged out of her coat, the cold immediately attacking her scrubs, stealing the warmth from her skin. And I'm a nurse. She draped the coat over the stranger, tucking it around his shoulders, pulling the collar up around his neck. It was too small for his frame. The sleeves barely reached his wrists, but it was something. It was warmth. It was the difference between life and death. The man's eyes widened. His mouth formed words that his frozen jaw couldn't quite speak, but Elena read them anyway. Why? Because someone should, she said simply. She pulled off her thin cotton scarf, the one Mia had given her for Christmas, decorated with snowflakes that her daughter had drawn in fabric marker, and wrapped it around his hands, trying to protect his fingers from further frostbite. The ambulance is coming, she lied. Just hold on. Stay awake. Can you do that for me? He managed the smallest nod. Elena's phone buzzed. 7:38. She was going to miss her bus. She was going to be late for her shift. She was going to freeze walking the rest of the way to the hospital in nothing but scrubs and the thin jacket she kept in her work locker. But the man was breathing. His shivering had actually increased, which paradoxically was a good sign. It meant his body was still trying to generate heat. I have to go, she said, hating herself for it. But I called for help. They're coming. I promise. She stood, wrapping her arms around herself against the brutal cold. The elderly woman was gone. The street was empty, except for passing cars, their headlights cutting through the falling snow. Elena looked down at the stranger one more time. Even hypothermic and half-frozen, there was something striking about him. The sharp angles of his face, the way he held himself with a kind of dignity despite sitting on a frozen sidewalk, the expensive watch on his wrist that didn't match his desperate circumstances. Stay alive, she whispered. Then she turned and ran. Elena made it 3 blocks before the cold became unbearable. Her teeth chattered so hard she bit her tongue, tasting copper. Her fingers had gone numb, her toes burning with the early stages of frostbite. The wind tore through her scrubs like they were tissue paper. She'd given away her survival. The thought hit her with crystalline clarity as she stumbled toward the bus stop. She'd given a stranger her only coat, her only protection against a Chicago winter, and now she was the one who might not make it home. Stupid, reckless, foolish. But when she closed her eyes, she saw those dark eyes watching her with something like wonder, and she couldn't regret it. The bus was late. Of course it was. Elena huddled in the shelter, pressed against 3 other people trying to share body heat. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Chen, the elderly neighbor who watched Mia during Elena's night shifts. Mia asking when you'll be home. I told her after your shift. She's drawing you pictures. Elena smiled despite her shivering. Mia, her reason for everything, her reason for working double shifts, for living on ramen and peanut butter, for giving away coats to freezing strangers because that's what good people did. And Elena wanted Mia to grow up knowing her mother was good even if she was broke. The bus finally arrived. Elena collapsed into a seat, her body shaking uncontrollably. The other passengers stared, a few with pity, most with the carefully blank expressions of people who'd learned not to see suffering. She made it to the hospital 17 minutes late. Martinez, her supervisor Linda, stood at the nurse's station with her arms crossed and her lips pressed into a thin line. 3rd time this month. I'm sorry. The bus, where's your coat? Elena froze. She hadn't prepared an explanation. How could she explain giving away her only coat to a stranger? How could she make it sound like anything other than the impractical, financially suicidal gesture it was? I lost it, she lied. Linda's eyes narrowed. She'd been a nurse for 30 years and could spot a lie from across a crowded ER. But instead of calling Elena out, she sighed, walked to the staff closet, and pulled out a hospital fleece jacket. Lost it, Linda repeated flatly, handing over the jacket. Right. Well, find a coat before your next shift, or you'll get pneumonia and I'll be short-staffed. Again. Thank you, Elena whispered. Don't thank me. Just do your job. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. Elena's shift passed in the unusual chaos of a winter night in Chicago. Frostbite cases, car accidents from icy roads, elderly patients with hypothermia, a steady stream of human suffering that numbed the mind and hardened the heart. But Elena kept thinking about the man on the sidewalk, wondering if the ambulance had arrived, If he'd survived, if her coat had made the difference, she'd never know. That was the nature of random acts of kindness. You did them and walked away, trusting that they mattered even if you never saw the outcome. At 2:37 a.m., during her break, Elena called Mrs. Chen to check on Mia. "She's sleeping like an angel, Mrs. Chen whispered. "But Elena, a man came by earlier, around 9 o'clock. Elena's blood ran cold. "What man?" "Said he was looking for you. Well-dressed, expensive car. Had an accent Italian, maybe? He asked if this was your residence, and I told him you weren't home. He seemed concerned. Asked me to tell you that a debt had been paid." "A debt?" Elena's mind raced. She didn't owe anyone money except the landlord and the electric company, and they certainly wouldn't send well-dressed men with Italian accents to her door. That's what he said. Then he left an envelope and drove away. "Elena, it's sitting on your kitchen counter. I didn't open it, that's your business, but it's thick. Really thick." After hanging up, Elena couldn't concentrate. A stranger at her apartment, an envelope, a message about debts. The rest of her shift crawled by. When she finally clocked out at 7 a.m., the sun was just rising over Lake Michigan, turning the ice-covered city pink and gold. Elena took the bus home, her borrowed hospital fleece doing almost nothing against the morning cold. Mrs. Chen was making coffee when Elena arrived. Mia was still asleep, her small body curled under blankets decorated with unicorns. "There." Mrs. Chen pointed to the kitchen counter. The envelope was cream-colored, heavy stock, the kind expensive stationery stores sold. Elena's name was written on the front in precise, elegant handwriting. With trembling fingers, she opened it. Inside were $5,100 bills. $5,000. More money than Elena had seen in one place in her entire life. And beneath the cash, a note written in the same elegant hand. "You gave a stranger warmth when you had little to spare. Please accept this as repayment for a coat, a scarf, and the kindness of believing someone was worth saving. The debt is mine, not yours. You owed me nothing. I owe you everything. Someone will be in touch." Elena's hands shook so badly the money fluttered to the floor. $5,000. $5,000 that would pay her rent for 4 months, buy Mia's medication, fix the car, replace the broken heater, provide a buffer against the constant terror of being one emergency away from homelessness. $5,000 from a stranger whose life she'd tried to save. "Elena?" Mrs. Chen touched her shoulder. "Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I gave someone my coat last night," Elena whispered. "A man who was freezing to death on the street. And he did this? Found where you live and brought you money?" Elena stared at the cash, at the note, at the initial D signed with a flourish. "I don't know who he is," she said, "but Mrs. Chen, what if he's dangerous? What if I've brought something terrible into our lives?" The elderly woman picked up one of the $100 bills, examining it in the morning light. "This money is real. And Elena, dangerous men don't usually say thank you with cash and polite notes." "Then who is he?" Mrs. Chen shrugged. "Someone with money and manners. In this city, that could mean anything." Elena looked at her daughter's bedroom door. Mia, who needed stability and safety, and a mother who didn't bring mysterious strangers into their orbit. But $5,000. $5,000 that could change everything. She gathered up the money, put it back in the envelope, and hid it in the freezer behind a bag of frozen peas. Not because she planned to use it, though God, she wanted to, but because she needed time to think, to understand, to figure out what kind of man tracked down a stranger's address just to repay a coat. Elena didn't sleep that day. She lay in bed listening to Mia play in the living room, her mind spinning through possibilities. A wealthy businessman who'd been mugged, a tourist who'd gotten lost, someone running from something, desperate enough to sit on a frozen sidewalk without a coat. Someone will be in touch. That's what the note said. Which meant this wasn't over. The stranger D was coming back. And Elena had no idea if that was a blessing or a curse. 3 days passed. Elena went to work, came home, paid her rent with the money from the envelope because she couldn't afford pride, and waited for the other shoe to drop. For D to show up demanding something in return. For the money to be revealed as stolen or fake. For the police to arrive asking questions she couldn't answer. But nothing happened. Mia started drawing pictures of angels. "Because you're an angel, Mama," she explained, adding wings to a figure that was supposed to be Elena. "Mrs. Chen told me you gave away your coat to help someone. Angels do that." "I'm not an angel, baby," Elena said, pulling her daughter onto her lap. I'm just your mama. Can be both, Mia insisted with 7-year-old certainty. On the 4th day, Elena came home from her shift to find Mrs. Chen sitting at her kitchen table with a man. He was young, maybe 25, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Elena's monthly salary. He stood when she entered, his posture military straight, his expression professionally neutral. "Miss Martinez," he said, "my name is Marco Ricci. I work for Dante Caruso. He asked me to deliver something." Elena's eyes went to Mrs. Chen, who gave a small shrug that, "I said he was polite, so I let him in." "I don't know a Dante Caruso," Elena said slowly. "He's the man you helped on Wacker Drive, the man whose life you saved." Elena's breath caught. Is he okay?" "He's recovering, thanks to you." Marco reached into his jacket. Elena flinched and pulled out a long box. "Mr. Caruso wanted you to have this. He tried to find a replacement for your coat, but he wasn't sure of the exact style, so he improvised." He set the box on the table and opened it. Inside was a coat, but not just any coat. This was a work of art. Charcoal gray wool, Italian by the look of the tailoring, with a silk lining in deep burgundy. The buttons were real horn, the collar genuine fur. There were interior pockets, reinforced seams, and a cut that would actually fit Elena's frame perfectly. This must have cost. Elena couldn't even finish the sentence. "Mr. Caruso doesn't discuss prices," Marco said simply. "He discusses debts, and he believes he still owes." "I don't understand." "The money was more than enough. The money was for the coat and scarf. This," Marco gestured to the box, "is because you didn't hesitate. You saw someone suffering and you helped, even though it cost you dearly. Mr. Caruso values that kind of character." Elena stared at the coat, beautiful and impossible and terrifying in its implications. "What does he want?" she asked quietly. "Men don't give away thousands of dollars and expensive coats for nothing. So what does he want in return?" Marco's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Respect, maybe." "Mr. Caruso wants to meet you," he said. "Just to say thank you in person, that's all. No obligations. No expectations. And if I say no, then I leave the coat, thank you for your time, and you never hear from us again." Marco met her eyes. "Miss Martinez, my employer is a private man. He doesn't make a habit of involving strangers in his life, but you saved him, and he's not accustomed to being saved. He wants to express his gratitude properly." Mrs. Chen spoke up from her seat. "Elena, I raised 4 children in this city. I know trouble when I see it. This man?" She looked at Marco. "He's not trouble. Mysterious, yes, but not trouble." "How can you know that?" Elena demanded. "Because trouble doesn't knock," Mrs. Chen said firmly. "And he knocked." Elena looked at the coat again, at Marco's patient expression, at the opportunity that terrified her and intrigued her in equal measure. "Just to say thank you?" she asked. "Just to say thank you," Marco confirmed. "Tomorrow evening, if you're available, Mr. Caruso has reserved a private dining room at Alinea. You would be his only guest. 2 hours, no more." And Marco pulled out a card with a phone number. "If at any point you feel uncomfortable, you call this number and a car will be there in 3 minutes to take you anywhere you want to go. Alinea, one of the most exclusive restaurants in Chicago." Elena, I had heard of it, impossible to get reservations, tasting menus that cost more than her weekly grocery budget. "I don't have anything to wear to a place like that," she said. "The coat will be perfect," Marco replied. "Mr. Caruso isn't interested in impressing you with formality. He just wants to meet the woman who saved his life." After Marco left, Elena sat at her kitchen table with the coat box in front of her and her head in her hands. "You're going to go, Mrs. Chen said. It wasn't a question. Am I insane? Probably. But Elena, when's the last time someone wanted to thank you? Really thank you, not just with words but with actions?" The older woman stood, heading toward the door. "You spend your life taking care of everyone else. Maybe it's time to let someone take care of you, just for one evening. What if he's dangerous? Then you use that card and you leave. But what if he's not? What if he's just a man who wants to say thank you to someone who showed him kindness when no one else would?" After Mrs. Chen left, Elena opened the coat box and lifted out the garment. It was the most beautiful thing she'd ever owned. She slipped it on, and it fit perfectly: the sleeves, the right length, the shoulders sitting just right, the hem falling to exactly the right spot above her knees. Whoever Dante Caruso was, he'd paid attention. He'd noticed her size, her height, her style. He'd cared enough to get it right. Elena caught sight of herself in the mirror. In this coat, she didn't look like a struggling single mother working night shifts to survive. She looked like someone worth meeting for dinner at Alinea. She looked like someone who deserved to be saved too. "Mama?" Mia appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "You look pretty." Elena smiled, gathering her daughter into her arms. "Thank you, baby." "Where are you going?" "I'm not sure yet," Elena said honestly. "But Mia, I need you to understand something. If Mama goes out tomorrow night, it's just for dinner. Just to say thank you to someone. That's all. Okay? Is it the man whose life you saved? How did you, Mrs. Chen talks to me," Mia said matter-of-factly. "She said you're a hero." "I'm not a hero." "Then what are you?" Elena looked at her reflection again. At the coat that cost more than she made in months. At her daughter's innocent face. At the card with the emergency number sitting on the table. "I'm someone who's going to find out what happens when you're kind to strangers," she said finally. And in that moment, Elena Martinez made a choice. Tomorrow evening, she would put on this impossible coat, walk into an exclusive restaurant, and meet the man whose life she'd saved. She had no idea that Dante Caruso wasn't just wealthy. He was the underboss of the Caruso crime family. That his absence from a crucial meeting on that January night had sparked a violent power struggle that left 3 men dead. That his enemies would see her kindness as weakness to exploit. She didn't know that saving his life had marked her as someone important to a man who ruled Chicago's underworld with intelligence and ruthless efficiency. Or that her decision to meet him for dinner would pull her into a world where kindness was currency and protection came with prices she couldn't imagine. All Elena knew was that a stranger had frozen to death in the middle of a Chicago sidewalk, and she'd given him her coat because it was the right thing to do. Tomorrow she'd find out if that kindness would save her or destroy her. The restaurant hostess looked at Elena like she was a puzzle that didn't quite fit. Alinea occupied 3 stories of a converted brick building in Lincoln Park, its entrance marked only by a subtle brass plaque that whispered exclusivity. Elena stood on the sidewalk in her new coat, her only good dress underneath a simple navy blue sheath she'd worn to a hospital fundraiser 2 years ago, and her most practical heels, already regretting this decision. "Miss Martinez?" A different young man appeared at the entrance. Not Marco, but cut from the same cloth, impeccably dressed, watchful eyes, the kind of stillness that came from discipline and training. "I'm Luca, Mr. Caruso is expecting you." Elena clutched her purse tighter. Inside was the card with the emergency number, her phone fully charged, and exactly $47 in case she needed to grab a cab and disappear into the night. "This way, please." Luca led her past the main dining room where Chicago's elite sat at minimalist tables, through a hallway decorated with abstract art that probably cost more than her apartment, and up a private staircase to the 3rd floor. "Mr. Caruso reserved the entire floor," Luca explained, reading her nervousness. "He values privacy. But Miss Martinez, there are staff members throughout the building. You're perfectly safe." Safe. The word felt foreign in her mouth. They reached a door. Luca knocked twice, then opened it. The private dining room was stunning floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lincoln Park. A single table set for 2, soft lighting that made everything feel intimate without being oppressive. And standing by the window, looking out at the snow-covered park, was the man from the sidewalk. Dante Caruso turned as she entered, and Elena's breath caught. He was different without the hypothermia. Tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair swept back from a face that was all sharp angles and aristocratic lines. He wore a charcoal suit that complemented the gray of her coat, no tie, the top button of his white shirt undone. The expensive watch was still on his wrist, and now Elena could see it was a Patek Philippe, the kind that cost 6 figures. But it was his eyes that held her. Dark as she remembered, but now clear and focused and radiating an intelligence that was almost overwhelming. These were eyes that missed nothing, calculated everything, assessed threats and opportunities with the speed of a supercomputer. And right now, they were looking at her with something like reverence. "Miss Martinez," he said, his voice a deep baritone with the faintest trace of an Italian accent. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure I should," Elena admitted. A smile flickered across his face, brief, genuine, transforming his austere features into something approaching warm. "Honest. I appreciate that." He gestured to the table. "Please, sit. I promise this isn't as intimidating as it looks." Luca pulled out her chair, and Elena sat, feeling like she'd stepped into someone else's life. Someone who belonged in private dining rooms and expensive coats, and the company of men who looked like they could buy and sell the world before breakfast. Dante took the seat across from her. Up close, she could see the evidence of his ordeal, faint shadows under his eyes, a healing cut on his temple that she'd missed in the dark, a careful way of moving that suggested his body was still recovering. "How are you feeling?" she asked, her nursing instincts overriding her nervousness. "Did you go to a hospital? Get checked for frostbite?" "I had private doctors attend to me," Dante said. "They confirmed what you probably already knew. I was approximately 20 minutes from organ failure when you found me. The coat and scarf you gave me raised my core temperature just enough to keep me alive until help arrived. The ambulance came? Eventually. Though by the time they arrived, I'd already been picked up by my own people." He paused. "I spent 3 days in bed recovering. Mild frostbite on my fingers and toes. But nothing permanent. The doctor said if I'd been out there even 15 minutes longer." He didn't finish the sentence. Elena's hands tightened on her napkin. "What were you doing on that sidewalk? A man in a suit that expensive doesn't just sit down in 8-degree weather without a coat unless something's very wrong." Dante's expression shifted, walls going up behind his eyes. "You're very perceptive. I'm a nurse. Reading people is part of the job. Then I'll be honest with you, Miss Martinez, because you saved my life and you deserve the truth." He leaned back in his chair, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. "I was at a business meeting that went badly. Very badly. I left in a hurry, without my coat, and discovered that the car I'd arrived in was no longer where I'd left it. My phone was dead. My wallet had been taken. And I was stranded in a part of the city I didn't know well, in weather that was actively trying to kill me." "Someone robbed you?" "Someone wanted to send me a message." His voice was flat. "They succeeded." Elena processed this. A business meeting that went badly. A missing car and wallet. A message sent through near-fatal exposure. "You're not a businessman, are you?" she said quietly. Dante's eyes locked onto hers. For a long moment he didn't speak. Then, "No. I'm not." "Then what are? To you?" "Someone who operates in the spaces between legal and illegal. Someone whose family has run certain enterprises in Chicago for 3 generations. Someone whose enemies occasionally get creative with their attempts to remove me from the board." The words hung in the air between them. Elena should stand up, should thank him for the coat and the money, and walk away before she got pulled any deeper into whatever world he inhabited. But she stayed seated. "You're in the Mafia," she said. Dante's eyebrow rose slightly. "That's a very Hollywood term." "But accurate?" "Accurate enough." He studied her face. "You're not running." "Should I be?" "Most people would." Elena thought about this. About the man shivering on the sidewalk with blue lips and dying eyes. About the $5,000 that had paid her rent. About the coat that fit perfectly, and the private dining room, and the way Dante Caruso looked at her like she was something rare and precious. "Most people didn't give you their coat," she said finally. Something in Dante's expression cracked open just for a second, revealing vulnerability beneath the armor. "No," he said softly, "they didn't." A server appeared with the first course, moving with practiced silence. Small plates of something elegant and incomprehensible, garnished with flowers and microgreens. "I took the liberty of ordering the tasting menu," Dante said. "But if you have preferences or dietary restrictions, this is fine." Elena looked at her plate. "Though I have no idea what it is." "Honestly, neither do I." That flicker of a smile again. "But it's supposed to be exceptional." They ate in silence for a moment. The food was incredible, delicate flavors that exploded on her tongue, textures that challenged everything she thought she knew about cooking. Elena had lived on ramen and peanut butter for so long that this felt like eating on another planet. "Tell me about your daughter," Dante said suddenly. Elena's fork stopped, halfway to her mouth. "How do you know about Mia?" "When someone saves my life, I make it a point to know who they are." His tone was matter-of-fact. "You're Elena Martinez, 29 years old, registered nurse at Mercy General Hospital. You work the night shift because it pays slightly more. You're divorced from Carlos Martinez, who hasn't paid child support in 7 months. You live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Pilsen with your daughter Mia, age 7, who has asthma. Your mother lives in Phoenix and calls every Sunday. You owe $4,000 in medical debt from when Mia had pneumonia last year." Elena set down her fork, her appetite gone. "You investigated me. I protected myself." Dante's voice was gentle but firm. "Miss Martinez, Elena, I live in a world where kindness is often a cover for betrayal. When a stranger saves my life, I need to know if it was genuine compassion or calculated strategy. And what did you decide? That you gave away your only coat in 8-degree weather to save a dying stranger, then went to work 17 minutes late and nearly lost your job. That you used the money I sent to pay rent instead of keeping it as a windfall. That your daughter draws pictures of angels because her mother is kind. He paused. That you're exactly who you appear to be, which is rarer than you might think. Elena's hands trembled slightly. This is a lot. I know. I'm sorry. Dante leaned forward. I didn't bring you here to frighten you. I brought you here to say thank you. Properly. Without the buffer of money or gifts or intermediaries. His dark eyes held hers. You saved my life, Elena. Not because you knew who I was or what I could do for you. You saved me because I was a human being who needed help. In my world, that kind of purity doesn't exist, and I wanted to meet you, to understand how someone can still have that much goodness intact. I'm not some saint, Elena said, her voice sharper than intended. I'm a single mother, barely keeping her head above water. I gave you my coat because I'm a nurse and I couldn't walk away from someone dying. It wasn't noble. It was training. It was both. Dante's voice was quiet. And you're wrong about something. It was absolutely noble. Because training tells you what to do. Character determines whether you actually do it. You could have called 911 and walked away, but you didn't. You gave up your warmth, your safety, your protection, for a stranger. That's nobility. Elena felt tears pricking her eyes. When was the last time someone had seen her, really seen her, as something other than a struggling single mother, or an overworked nurse, or a woman who couldn't keep her husband from leaving? Why does this matter so much to you? She whispered. Dante was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of old pain. Because 6 months ago, my sister was in trouble. She called me, asked for help. And I was too busy with business, too, focused on deals and territories and power plays. I told her I'd call her back. His jaw tightened. She died that night, car accident. And I never got to tell her I was sorry for not being there when she needed me. Dante, you didn't know me. You had no reason to help. You had every reason to protect yourself and walk away. But you didn't. You gave me what my sister needed, and I failed to give her the absolute certainty that she mattered enough to save. His eyes glistened. So yes, this matters to me. It matters more than you can possibly understand. The server returned with the next course, breaking the intensity of the moment. Elena wiped her eyes discreetly, and Dante composed himself with the ease of someone practiced at hiding emotion. They ate. They talked. Dante asked about nursing, about Mia's love of drawing, about Elena's dreams before life became about survival. Elena found herself relaxing, laughing at his dry humor, surprised by his intelligence and the way he listened, really listened, like her words were the most important thing in the world. You're not what I expected, she admitted during the 7th course. What did you expect? Someone scarier, colder, more, she gestured vaguely. Mafia. He smiled. I'm plenty scary when the situation requires it. But Elena, I'm also just a man. A man who likes good food and terrible action movies and watching the lake at sunrise. A man who misses his sister every day. A man who's trying to figure out how to be better than the legacy he inherited. Can you be better? I'm trying. He met her eyes. And meeting you makes me want to try harder. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Elena should shut this down, should maintain distance, should remember that this man lived in a world of violence and crime and danger. But she also remembered his blue lips on that sidewalk, remembered the thank you note written in elegant script, remembered the way he'd made sure the coat fit perfectly, the way he'd learned about Mia, the way he looked at her now like she was something infinitely valuable. I should get home, she said finally. Mia will be wondering where I am. Of course. Dante stood, pulling out her chair. Thank you for coming, for giving me this time. They walked to the entrance together, Luca appearing silently to escort them. At the door, Dante paused. Elena, I know this is complicated. I know I'm asking you to trust someone you have no reason to trust. But I'd like to see you again. Just as friends. Just as two people who met under extraordinary circumstances and want to know each other better. I don't think we can be just friends, Elena said honestly. Why not? Because you're you and I'm me. Because your world and my world don't mix. Because this, She gestured at the restaurant, at him, at the impossible situation. This doesn't happen to people like me. Maybe it should. Dante reached into his jacket and pulled out a card. Not the emergency number, but his personal contact. No pressure, no expectations. But if you ever need anything help with a bill, a problem that needs solving, or just someone to talk to at 3 a.m. when the world feels overwhelming, call me. Elena took the card, her fingers brushing his. The touch sent electricity up her arm. Why are you really doing this? She asked. The truth, not the pretty version. Dante's eyes held hers, and for once, every wall came down. Because when I was dying on that sidewalk, I realized I'd spent 41 years building an empire and 0 years building a life. Because you showed me kindness without calculation, and I can't remember the last time someone did that. Because your daughter draws angels and thinks her mother is a hero, and she's right. He paused. And because looking at you makes me want to be the kind of man who deserves to be saved. Elena's breath caught. This was dangerous territory. This was falling for someone. Impossible. Someone who could destroy her life with a phone call. Someone whose enemies used hypothermia as a message. But it was also thrilling and terrifying and real in a way nothing had been real in years. I'll think about it, she managed. That's all I ask. A car was waiting, a town car with a professional driver. Dante opened the door himself. He'll take you home. And Elena? He smiled. Keep the coat. It looks better on you anyway. Elena didn't call. For 2 weeks she went to work, came home, took care of Mia, and tried to forget the way Dante Caruso had looked at her like she hung the moon. She told herself it was impossible. Impractical. Insane to even consider getting involved with a man whose business operated between legal and illegal. But she kept his card in her purse, and she wore the coat every day, feeling the expensive wool against her skin like a reminder that magic, even dangerous magic, could be real. On the Rio and 15th day, everything changed. Elena was leaving the hospital after her shift, exhausted and looking forward to crawling into bed, when 3 men stepped out of a van. They didn't say anything, didn't threaten or explain. They just grabbed her, professional and quick, one hand over her mouth to prevent screaming, and dragged her toward the open vehicle. Elena fought. She kicked and bit and clawed, her nursing training forgotten in pure survival instinct. One of the men cursed as her elbow connected with his nose. Another pulled out a cloth chloroform, her mind supplied helpfully even as terror overwhelmed her. Then a voice cut through the parking lot like a knife. Let her go. Now. The men froze. Elena, one arm still trapped, twisted to see. Marco stood 10 feet away, flanked by 2 other men she didn't recognize. He wasn't holding a weapon, didn't need to. His entire posture radiated lethal capability. This doesn't concern you, Ricci, one of Elena's attackers said, his hand still clamped over her mouth. Everything concerning Miss Martinez concerns me. Marco's voice was ice. And you're making a terminal mistake. Dante doesn't own her. She's fair game. No, a new voice. Dante stepped out of the shadows near the parking garage, and Elena's heart nearly stopped. He wore dark clothes, his expression colder than she'd ever seen it, radiating danger like a physical force. She's under my protection, which means touching her is touching me. The man holding Elena hesitated. Elena could feel his indecision, see the calculation in his eyes. Finally, he released her, shoving her forward. She stumbled, and Dante caught her, pulling her behind him in one smooth motion. Tell Vitali this was his warning, Dante said quietly. The next person who approaches her dies. No negotiations, no second chances, just death. The 3 men backed away, climbed into their van, and drove off. The moment they were gone, Dante turned to Elena, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Are you hurt? Did they— I'm fine, Elena gasped, though she was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. What the hell was that? Who were those men? Complications. Dante's jaw was tight with rage. I'm sorry, Elena. I thought I'd handled this, but apparently I was wrong. Handled what? Dante, what's going on? He looked at Marco, some silent communication passing between them. Then Dante took Elena's hand. We need to talk. Not here. Somewhere safe. He gestured to a car. Please, trust me for 10 more minutes. Elena should refuse. Should call the police. Should do anything except get in a car with a Mafia underboss after being nearly kidnapped in a hospital parking lot. But she got in the car. Because Dante had saved her. Because Marco had appeared at exactly the right moment. Because somewhere in the past 2 weeks, despite every ounce of common sense, She'd started trusting the man who'd frozen on a sidewalk and thanked her with impossible gifts. And because the alternative, going home alone, unprotected, vulnerable, felt infinitely more dangerous, they drove to a building in the South Loop luxury condos with private security and underground parking. Dante's apartment was on the top floor, all floor-to-ceiling windows and modern furniture, and the kind of space that screamed wealth without flaunting it. Marco stayed by the door. 2 other men positioned themselves in the hallway. Dante guided Elena to a couch, poured her a glass of water she didn't drink, and sat across from her with his hands clasped, struggling to find words. 18 days ago, I was supposed to attend a meeting, he finally said. A very important meeting with a rival organization. There were disagreements about territory, about business operations, about respect. He paused. I was supposed to negotiate peace. Instead, I ended up on that sidewalk without a coat, nearly dying, because someone in my own organization decided peace wasn't profitable enough. Elena's hands tightened on the water glass. Someone tried to kill you. Yes, by making sure I'd miss the meeting and freeze to death before I could make it home. 2 birds, 1 stone. Vitaly, the man who those 3 worked for, assumed I'd die, the meeting would fall apart, and he could swoop in to take control of my territory. But you didn't die, because you saved me. Dante's eyes held hers. And now Vitaly knows that I'm alive, that I'm aware of his betrayal, and that I'm consolidating power to remove him permanently. So he's looking for leverage, ways to hurt me, pressure points. And he thinks I'm a pressure point. Elena's voice was hollow. He thinks you care about me, so he'll use me to get to you. Yes. But we barely know each other. We had 1 dinner. That's it? Doesn't matter. Marco spoke from his position by the door. Boss spent 3 days recovering, and the first thing he did was send you money. He bought you a coat. He invited you to Elena. In our world, that's a declaration. Everyone knows you matter to him now. So I'm a target because you were grateful? Elena stood up, pacing. Because you wanted to say thank you properly? My God, Dante, do you understand what you've done? I have a daughter. Mia is 7 years old, and now there are men who think they can use her to hurt you? They won't touch her. Dante's voice was steel. I've already arranged protection. There are 4 men watching your apartment right now. Your daughter is safe. Safe? Elena's voice rose. Safe is not having strangers watching my home. Safe is not having mobsters targeting my family. Safe is not being pulled into your world because I made the mistake of being a decent human being. Dante flinched like she'd struck him. You're right. This is my fault. All of it. And if I could undo it, if I could go back and freeze to death on that sidewalk so you'd never be involved in this, I would. The raw honesty in his voice stopped Elena's pacing. But I can't, Dante continued quietly. It's done. Vitaly knows who you are. His people have seen you. And men like him don't forget or let go. So now we have 2 choices. He stood, moving closer but not touching. Choice 1. I give you new identities, real ones, unbreakable. You and Mia disappear tonight. New city, new names, new lives. I'll fund everything. You'll be comfortable, safe, and completely removed from my world. You'll never see me again. And choice 2? Choice 2 is you let me protect you. His voice dropped. You stay in Chicago. You keep your job, your apartment, your life. But you also accept that I'm going to have men watching you 24/7, that I'm going to personally ensure Vitaly and anyone else understands that touching you means war, that I'm going to be in your life not as a romantic entanglement, not as pressure, just as a shield between you and the darkness my world represents. Elena stared at him. At this impossible man who'd upended her existence with his gratitude. Why would you do that? Why not just send us away and wash your hands of the problem? Because I don't want you to disappear. The admission seemed to cost him. Because I'm selfish enough to want you in my life. Even if it's just knowing you're out there, safe and happy, and drawing angels with your daughter. Because Elena, I've spent 41 years surrounded by people who want something from me: money, power, protection, fear. You wanted nothing. And that made me want everything. The silence stretched between them, heavy with implication. If I stay, Elena said slowly, if I accept your protection, what does that make me? Your what? Mistress? Girlfriend? Pet project? My friend. Dante's voice was firm. My responsibility. Someone I care about who I will keep safe no matter what it costs. He paused. Unless you want to be something more, then we can discuss that. But Elena, the protection isn't conditional on. Romance. It's conditional on me being a man who doesn't let good people suffer for my mistakes. Elena closed her eyes, thought about Mia, about their tiny apartment and their safe, small life, about running again, new city, new name, always looking over her shoulder, about the alternative, staying, fighting, accepting help from a dangerous man who'd somehow become important. How do I know I can trust you? She whispered. You don't. Dante's honesty was brutal. Trust is earned. All I can do is promise that I will never lie to you, never use you as a pawn, and never let anyone hurt you or Mia. That's the only guarantee I can give. Elena opened her eyes and found him watching her with an intensity that stole her breath. I need to think. Of course. Marco will take you home. The protection detail will be subtle, you won't see them unless necessary. And Elena? Dante handed her his phone. Call Mia. Right now. Let her hear your voice. Let yourself know she's safe. Elena called. Mrs. Chen answered on the second ring, Mia's laughter audible in the background. Everything was fine. They were making cookies. Mia wanted to know if Mama would be home for breakfast. I'll be there, Elena promised, her voice thick with emotion. When she hung up, Dante's expression had softened. She sounds happy. She is. Despite everything, she's happy. Elena looked at him. I'm not going to disappear, Dante. Running is what got me divorced, broke, and working night shifts to survive. I'm done running. So choice two? Choice two. Elena stood, gathering her coat, the coat he'd given her. But I have conditions. Name them. Your men stay invisible. Mia doesn't know about any of this. We maintain our normal life as much as possible. She moved closer to him. And you figure out how to end this. How to make Vitaly go away permanently so we're not living under protection forever. I won't raise my daughter in fear. Agreed. Dante extended his hand. Do we have a deal, Miss Martinez? Elena looked at his hand. At the expensive watch. At the man who'd nearly died and come back determined to repay a debt that couldn't be repaid. She shook it. We have a deal, Mr. Caruso. Neither of them saw the camera across the street, capturing the moment. Neither of them knew that Vitaly's people were already planning their next move. That protection could only go so far. That the war Elena had just agreed to weather was about to escalate beyond anything either of them anticipated. But in that moment, standing in Dante's apartment with his hand warm in hers, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not quite safe, not quite fearless, but no longer alone. The first week of protection was subtle. Elena went to work, picked up Mia from school, made dinner, helped with homework, and lived her life while invisible guardians watched from the shadows. She spotted them occasionally, a man reading a newspaper who'd been on the same corner for 3 hours, a woman in a parked car who never left, a maintenance worker who seemed to fix the same streetlight every night. But Mia never noticed, and that was what mattered. Dante kept his distance. He called once, briefly, to ensure everything was acceptable. His voice on the phone was professional, careful, nothing like the raw vulnerability he'd shown in his apartment. If you need anything. I know, Elena interrupted. I have your number. Use it. For anything. Even if it's just... He paused. Even if you just need to talk. Elena didn't call. She told herself it was about maintaining boundaries, about not getting more entangled than she already was, about protecting herself from falling for a man whose world was built on violence. But late at night, when Mia was asleep and the apartment was quiet, she'd hold his card and wonder what he was doing, if he thought about her. If that moment in his apartment you wanted nothing, and that made me want everything had meant as much to him as it did to her. On day 8, Vitaly made his second move. Elena was at Mercy General, halfway through her shift, when her supervisor Linda appeared at the nurse's station with a grim expression. Martinez, my office, now. Elena's stomach dropped. What's wrong? Office. Linda closed the door and handed Elena a folder. Inside were photographs Elena entering Dante's building. Elena in the car with Marco, Elena at Alinea through the restaurant's windows. And beneath them, a letter printed on hospital stationery. We have concerns about Elena Martinez's associations and their potential impact on patient safety and hospital reputation. We recommend immediate termination. Elena's hands shook. Who sent this? Anonymous tip to the board of directors. Linda's expression was tight with anger. Someone wants you gone, Elena. And they're using your connection to Dante Caruso to make it happen. I haven't done anything wrong. I know that. You're one of my best nurses. But the board doesn't care. about right and wrong. They care about liability, about headlines, about the words organized crime appearing in the same sentence as Mercy General Hospital. Linda sat down heavily. They're putting you on administrative leave pending investigation. 2 weeks, paid, while they determine if your associations constitute grounds for termination. Elena felt the room spin. Her job, her income, her health insurance, Mia's asthma medication. Everything balanced on this position, and now it was slipping away because she'd saved a man's life. "This is Vitali," she said quietly. "He's destroying my life piece by piece." "Who's Vitali?" "Someone who wants to hurt Dante by hurting me." Elena stood, her nursing scrubs suddenly feeling like a costume. "Linda, I didn't ask for any of this. I gave a stranger my coat because he was freezing to death. That's it. That's my crime." "I believe you." Linda's voice softened. "Which is why I'm going to fight this. But Elena, you need to be smart. Whatever's happening with Dante Caruso, end it. Distance yourself. Give the board no reason to question your judgment." Elena left the hospital in a daze. The late March sun was setting over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that mocked her turmoil. She stood in the parking lot, the same lot where she'd been grabbed 2 weeks ago, and pulled out her phone. She called Dante. He answered on the first ring. "Elena, what's wrong?" "Everything." Her voice cracked. "Everything is wrong, and I don't know what to do." "Where are you?" "Mercy General. They just put me on administrative leave. Vitali sent them photos, made it look like I'm some kind of mob girlfriend, and now they're investigating whether to fire me." Silence. Then, voice tight with fury, "I'll handle this." "How? How do you handle a hospital board that's terrified of bad publicity? How do you fix this without making it worse?" "Elena, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She closed her eyes. Thought. About Mia's medication. About rent due in 9 days. About the careful life she'd built crumbling because she'd shown kindness to a stranger. "I don't have a choice." "Yes, you do. You always have a choice." Dante's voice gentled. "You can walk away right now. Take choice 1, new identities, new city, clean break. I'll have everything arranged in 24 hours. And Vitali wins. He gets to destroy my life and face no consequences. Vitali will face consequences regardless. But Elena, if you stay, this gets worse before it gets better. He's going to attack everything you care about: your job, your reputation, your daughter's safety. He's going to make your life hell until I eliminate him as a threat. Then eliminate him." The words came out harder than she intended. "You said you'd handle this. So handle it." Another pause. "You're asking me to go to war. I'm asking you to protect me. That was the deal, remember? I stay, you keep us safe, and you make Vitali go away. Permanently." Elena's voice was steel. "So make him go away, Dante. Before he takes everything from me." "Okay." Single word, heavy with promise. "Okay. But Elena, I need you and Mia somewhere secure while I work. Somewhere Vitali can't reach you. Will you let me move you? Just temporarily?" Elena thought about their apartment, about Mia's school, about the normal life she'd promised her daughter. "Where?" "I have a house. In Lake Forest, north of the city. Gated property, full security, staff who are loyal and trained. You and Mia would have your own wing. Privacy, safety, everything you need." He paused. "It's not a request, Elena. If you want me to end this, I need to know you're protected while I do it." "For how long?" 2 weeks. Maybe 3. However long it takes to dismantle Vitali's operation and ensure he's no longer a threat. Elena watched the sun disappear behind the Chicago skyline. Somewhere in this city, her daughter was at school, innocent and safe. For now. "Send a car," she said. "I'll pack tonight. But Dante? This thing you're about to do, don't tell me about it. Don't make me complicit. Just do it and let me keep believing you're better than the violence." "I am better." His voice was quiet. "But I'm also practical, and protecting you is worth any price." After hanging up, Elena stood in the parking lot and let herself cry. For the job she might lose, for the life that kept getting more complicated, for the impossible situation of falling for a man who solved problems with power and money and threats. But also for the relief. The terrible, shameful relief of having someone strong enough to fight her battles when she was too tired to fight anymore. The house in Lake Forest was obscene. Not a house, an estate. 12,000 square feet of limestone and glass sitting on 5 acres of manicured grounds. The driveway alone was longer than Elena's street. The foyer had a chandelier that probably cost more than her annual salary. Mia's eyes went wide as she took it in. "Mama, is this a palace?" "It's Mr. Caruso's house," Elena said, clutching her daughter's hand. "We're staying here for a little while, like a vacation." "Why?" "Because your mother gave a mobster her coat and now his enemies are trying to destroy our lives. Because our apartment is getting some repairs done. And Mr. Caruso was kind enough to offer us a place to stay." Marco appeared in the foyer with a woman Elena didn't recognize, mid-50s, elegant, with sharp eyes and a warm smile. "Miss Martinez, this is Teresa. She manages the household. Anything you need, ask her." "Welcome." Teresa's voice carried the faint trace of an Italian accent. "I've prepared the east wing for you and your daughter. 2 bedrooms, private bathroom, sitting area. I hope you'll be comfortable." "This is too much," Elena whispered. "This is necessity." Marco's voice was gentle. "Boss's orders. You're to be treated as honored guests. That means comfort, privacy, and security." Teresa led them upstairs. The east wing was bigger than Elena's entire apartment. A master bedroom with a king bed and fireplace, a connected room for Mia decorated in soft blues and greens, a bathroom with a soaking tub that could fit 3 people. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the grounds, where Elena could see discreet security posts disguised as garden features. "I'll bring up dinner in an hour," Teresa said. "Unless you'd prefer to eat in the main dining room." "Here is fine." Elena couldn't imagine sitting in a formal dining room right now. "Thank you, Teresa." After the housekeeper left, Mia explored her temporary room with the excitement of a child who didn't understand the danger. She found the window seat, the bookshelf filled with children's classics, the art supplies in the desk drawer. "Mama, can I draw Mr. Caruso a thank you picture? That would be lovely, baby." While Mia drew, Elena stood at the window and watched the sun set over Lake Michigan in the distance. Somewhere in Chicago, Dante was making moves, calling in favors, applying pressure, doing whatever men like him did when they went to war. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. Send Caruso a message. Back off, or the girl pays the price." Below the text was a photo Mia's school, taken from across the street. Mia herself visible through a classroom window. Elena's blood turned to ice. Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. "Mia." She fought to keep her voice calm. "Baby, I need to make a phone call. Stay right here, okay? Don't leave this room." "Okay, Mama." Elena walked into the hallway, found an empty bedroom, and called Dante with trembling fingers. "Elena, they have photos of Mia's school. They sent me a threat," they said. Her voice broke. "They said she'll pay the price if you don't back off." The silence on the other end was terrifying. When Dante spoke, his voice was colder than she'd ever heard it. "Forward me the text. Every word, every image. Do it now." Elena's fingers fumbled through the process. 30 seconds later, Dante spoke again. "Mia's school has 6 security cameras. Vitali's people hacked the feeds to get that photo. They're gone now. I just had my tech team lock them out, but Elena, this confirms what I suspected. Vitali isn't going to stop. He's escalating. Then what do we do?" Elena's voice rose. "You said you'd handle this. You said we'd be safe. You are safe. Mia is safe. They took that photo yesterday before you moved to Lake Forest. It's a scare tactic, nothing more." But his voice was tight. "However, this changes the timeline. I was planning to dismantle Vitali's operation slowly, piece by piece. Now we're going nuclear." "What does that mean?" "It means tomorrow, Vitali loses everything that matters to him. His businesses, his cash flow, his political protection, his crew's loyalty. By Friday, he'll be a man with nothing to lose, which makes him even more dangerous. So Friday night, I'm removing him from the board permanently." Elena's stomach churned. "You're going to kill him. I'm going to eliminate the threat to you and Mia. However, that needs to happen. Dante, Elena, listen to me." His voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "I gave you a choice 2 weeks ago. You chose to stay. You chose to let me protect you. That means I do what's necessary. And you accept that my methods aren't always clean or legal or morally comfortable. If you can't accept that, tell me now, and I'll arrange the new identities tonight." Elena closed her eyes. Thought about the text message. About Mia visible through a school window. About men who would hurt a 7-year-old to send a message. "Do what you need to do," she whispered. "Just Come back from it. Don't let it turn you into something worse than what you're fighting. I won't. Pause. And Elena? I'm coming to Lake Forest tomorrow. We need to talk, face to face. About what? About what happens after this is over. About choices and consequences. And where we go from here. His voice softened. About the fact that I'm falling for you. And that's the most dangerous complication of all. The line went dead before Elena could respond. She stood alone in the empty bedroom, her heart pounding, Dante's words echoing in her mind. I'm falling for you. A man who solved problems with violence and power and ruthless efficiency was falling for her. And God help her, she was falling right back. Dante arrived at noon the next day. Elena was in the garden with Mia, watching her daughter chase butterflies between the rose bushes when she heard the car. A black Range Rover, bulletproof windows, Marco driving. Dante emerged from the passenger seat wearing dark jeans and a leather jacket, looking less like a crime boss and more like a man who'd spent a sleepless night making terrible decisions. Mama, Mr. Caruso's here. Mia ran toward him before Elena could stop her. Look what I drew for you. Dante knelt down to Mia's level, accepting the drawing with solemnity. It showed 3 stick figures, one labeled Mama, one labeled Mia, and one labeled Mr. Caruso, standing in front of a house surrounded by flowers. This is beautiful, Mia. Is this your home? It's a dream home, Mia explained seriously. Mama says we can't afford a real house with a yard, so I draw dream ones instead. This one has a garden and a swing set and a room for all my art supplies. Something flickered across Dante's face, pain, determination, something Elena couldn't quite read. Dreams are important, he said quietly. Never stop drawing them. Do you have dreams, Mr. Caruso? I do. He glanced at Elena. I'm working on making one of them real right now. Mia beamed and ran back to the butterflies. Dante stood, walking toward Elena with careful steps. Hi, he said. Hi. Elena's voice came, out smaller than she intended. You look tired. I am tired. He gestured to a bench tucked between the roses. Can we sit? They sat in silence for a moment, watching Mia dance through the garden, innocent and happy despite the chaos surrounding them. It's done, Dante finally said. Vitali lost his primary revenue streams at dawn. His supply lines are cut. His political connections are burned. By tonight, half his crew will defect to other organizations. By tomorrow, he'll be a man with nothing but enemies. And Friday? Friday, he ceases to be a problem. Dante's jaw tightened. I want to tell you it will be clean, that no one will die, but I can't promise that. Vitali isn't the type to surrender peacefully. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. I don't want to know the details. Good, because I'm not going to tell you. He turned to face her. But Elena, I need you to understand something. After Friday, there will be repercussions. Other families will wonder if I've gone soft. If I'm making decisions based on emotion instead of strategy, they'll test me. And I'll have to prove that protecting you wasn't weakness. How do you prove that? By being colder, harder, more ruthless than before. His eyes held hers. By becoming exactly the man you're afraid I am. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. His voice was raw. Elena, I have killed people. I have ordered deaths. I have done things that would make you run screaming if you knew the details. And the worst part? I'd do them all again if it meant keeping you and Mia safe. Elena should stand up, should take Mia and demand to be moved somewhere far from this man and his impossible world. But instead, she reached out and took his hand. I don't want to know what you've done, she said quietly. I don't want to know what you're going to do. But Dante, I need to know why. Why this matters so much. Why you're risking everything for a woman and child you barely know. Dante looked down at their Aster, joined hands. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. My sister Gianna had a son named Luca. He was 8 when they died. Same age as Mia, same bright eyes, same way of seeing the world as something magical instead of dangerous. He paused. The night of the accident, Gianna called me. She was scared. Her husband, my lieutenant, was doing jobs that made her uncomfortable. She wanted to leave, take Luca somewhere safe. She asked me to help. And you said no. I said I'd call her back, that I was busy with a negotiation. That family loyalty meant standing together, not running away. His voice cracked. I never called back. 3 hours later, she and Luca were dead. Brake lines cut. Message sent. Elena's throat tightened. That's why you were on that sidewalk. That's why you didn't call for help. I was leaving a meeting with the man I suspected ordered my sister's death. I confronted him. He had my car towed, my phone destroyed, my wallet stolen, and left me to freeze, as a reminder that I wasn't as powerful as I thought. Dante's eyes glistened. I sat on that sidewalk waiting to die, and all I could think was that I deserved it, that this was justice for failing Gianna. Then I found you. Then you found me. He looked at her. And you gave me your coat, your warmth, your kindness. You saved me when I didn't deserve saving. And Elena, I swore that night that if I survived, I would never again fail someone who needed protection. Never again let a good person suffer because I was too focused on power and pride to do what was right. Elena felt tears sliding down her cheeks. So this is about redemption. This is about you. Dante's voice was fierce. You and Mia. You're not my sister. You're not a replacement for what I lost. You're something new. Something good. Something that makes me want to be better than the man I've been. He stood, pulling her up with him. They were close now. Close enough that Elena could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of command, the loneliness of being a man everyone feared and no one truly knew. After Friday, he said quietly, when Vitaly is gone and you're safe, I want you to make a choice. A real choice, with no pressure or obligation or gratitude clouding your judgment. What choice? Whether you want me in your life, not as protection, not as a benefactor, not as some dangerous man you're afraid of, but as someone who cares about you. Someone who wants to know what Mia's learning in school and whether you prefer coffee or tea, and what your dreams look like beyond survival. His hand came up to cup her cheek. Someone who's falling in love with you and terrified you'll never feel the same. Elena's breath caught. Dante. You don't have to answer now. You shouldn't answer now. Wait until Friday. Until you see if I come back from this still capable of being the man you deserve. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers. But Elena, know this. Whatever you choose, whatever happens, you will always be safe. You and Mia both. That's not conditional on romance or reciprocation. That's just a fact. Before Elena could respond, Mia's voice called out, Mama, Mr. Caruso, come see. I found a ladybug. Dante stepped back, composing himself. We should go look at the ladybug. Dante, wait. Friday, he said gently. Give me until Friday. Let me finish this. Then we'll talk about everything. He walked toward Mia, who was cupping something in her small hands. Elena stood frozen, her heart pounding, his words echoing in her mind. I'm falling in love with you. A man who killed people, who ruled an empire, who was about to go to war for her, was falling in love with her. And the terrifying truth was that she was falling right back. She just didn't know if that was salvation or damnation. Friday arrived with the kind of cold spring rain that turned Chicago gray and miserable. Elena spent the day in the Lake Forest house trying to keep Mia entertained and not check her phone every 3 minutes. Dante had left Thursday night with Marco and 4 other men, promising to return before dawn Saturday. It'll be over by then, he'd said, kissing her forehead in a gesture that felt both chaste and devastatingly intimate. Trust me. Now it was 11 p.m. Friday night, and Elena sat in the East Wing's sitting room, unable to sleep, unable to focus on anything except the fact that somewhere in Chicago, the man she was falling for was doing terrible things to keep her safe. Teresa brought tea at midnight. He'll be fine. I've worked for the Caruso family for 20 years. Dante always comes home. What if this time is different? It won't be. Teresa's confidence was absolute. Now drink your tea and try to rest. Mia will want her mother in good spirits tomorrow. Elena tried. She drank the tea. She lay down in the luxurious bed. She closed her eyes. And at 2:17 a.m., she heard the front door open. She was up instantly, pulling on a robe, running downstairs before common sense could stop her. Marco was in the foyer, his suit jacket torn, a bruise blooming on his jaw. Behind him, 2 other men, also worse for wear. Where's Dante? Elena demanded. Garage. Marco's voice was tired. He's okay, just... Elena ran. The garage was a converted carriage house that held 6 vehicles. Dante stood at a utility sink, washing blood from his hands. His shirt was ruined, his knuckles split, a cut above his eye still bleeding slowly. You're hurt, Elena said from the doorway. Dante looked up, surprised. Elena, you should be asleep. Like I could sleep. She moved closer, her nursing instincts overriding everything else. Sit down. Let me look at that cut. It's nothing. Sit. Down. He sat on a workbench, and Elena found a first aid kit hanging on the wall. She cleaned the cut with steady hands, applied butterfly bandages, checked his pupils for concussion signs. Is Vitali? Gone. Dante's voice was flat. He won't threaten anyone again. Did you? Don't ask me questions you don't want answers to. His hand caught her wrist gently. Elena, I did what needed to be done. How I did it, who survived, who didn't, those details aren't for you. She finished bandaging him, then stepped back. He looked exhausted, haunted, like a man who'd crossed lines he could never uncross. Are you okay? She asked softly. No. Honest. Brutal. But I will be. They stood in the garage, rain drumming on the roof, two people from completely different worlds trying to figure out if the space between them could ever be bridged. You said Friday, Elena whispered. You said after Friday, I could choose. I did. I choose you. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. I choose this, whatever this is. I choose to stop being terrified and start being brave. I choose to believe that the man who gave me a coat and protected my daughter and looks at me like I'm something precious is real, even if the rest of you is dangerous. Dante stood slowly. Elena, you should think about. I have thought about it. For 3 weeks, I've thought about nothing else. She moved closer. You're not who I expected. You're not who I should want, but you're who I do want. And I'm tired of pretending otherwise. I'm going to hurt you eventually. His voice was pained. My world, my life. It's not compatible with normal. With safe. With the kind of future you deserve. Then change it. Elena's voice was fierce. You said meeting me made you want to be better. So be better. Not by walking away, but by figuring out how to build something real despite the darkness. Dante's hand came up to cup her face. You're asking me to choose between the Empire and you. I'm asking you to choose yourself. The version of yourself that sits on sidewalks freezing to death and thinks he deserves it. Or the version that saves people and builds something worth protecting. She leaned into his touch. I'm asking you to be the man I already see when I look at you. For a moment, Dante didn't move. Then he pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her, holding her like she was the only solid thing in a world coming apart. I don't know if I can do this, he whispered into her hair. Be what you need. Then we'll figure it out together. They stood in the garage, rain falling, both of them damaged and desperate and daring to hope. When Dante finally pulled back, his eyes were clearer. Okay, he said. Okay, we try. We build something real. We figure out how to make this work. He kissed her forehead. But Elena, it won't be easy. The other families will test me. They'll assume you're a weakness. I'll have to prove them wrong, which means you'll be scary and powerful and intimidating. Elena finished. I understand. Just promise me you'll come home. That whatever you have to do out there, you'll come back to us. Us? Me and Mia. We're a package deal. Dante's expression softened. I wouldn't want it any other way. He kissed her then, not on the forehead or cheek, but on the lips. Gentle at first, then deeper. Months of tension and fear and longing pouring into the connection. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Elena felt something shift in her chest. This was real. This dangerous, impossible, beautiful thing between them was real. Come on, she said, taking his hand. Let's get you properly cleaned up. Then you're sleeping. Doctor's orders. Bossy, Dante said, but he was smiling. You have no idea. As they walked back to the house, fingers intertwined, neither of them saw the figure watching from the trees at the property's edge. Neither of them knew that Vitali hadn't been working alone. That eliminating him had left a power vacuum that 3 rival families were already moving to fill. That the war wasn't over, it was just beginning. But in that moment, walking through the rain toward warmth and safety and something that looked like love, Elena and Dante let themselves believe in happy endings. Even if happy endings, in their world, always came with a price. Elena stood in the kitchen of the Lake Forest estate, her kitchen now, in the home Dante had insisted she and Mia move into permanently making pancakes for Saturday breakfast. Outside, the September sun painted Lake Michigan gold and silver. Mia's laughter drifted in from the garden where Dante was teaching her about the different types of roses Teresa had planted. He'd taken to spending weekends here, gradually integrating himself into their lives with the patience of a man who understood that trust was built slowly. The hospital had reinstated her after a very generous anonymous donation funded a new pediatric wing. Elena still worked nights occasionally. She loved nursing too much to quit, but now she also managed the Caruso Foundation's healthcare initiatives, using her experience to direct resources where they'd do the most good. Dante had been right about the other families testing him. There'd been challenges, confrontations, moments when he'd had to prove that caring about Elena didn't make him weak, but he'd handled them with the ruthless efficiency that had made him powerful in the first place, and he always came home. Sometimes wounded, sometimes exhausted, sometimes carrying the weight of decisions she'd never understand. But he came home to her and Mia, to this house that had become their sanctuary, to the life they were building one careful day at a time. "Mama!" Mia burst through the door, clutching a rose. "Look what Dante gave me. It's called a peace rose. He says it's special. It's beautiful, baby." Elena kissed her daughter's head, then looked up as Dante appeared in the doorway. He looked good, rested, happy in a way that transformed his austere features into something approaching gentle. He'd started wearing jeans on weekends, had learned to make pancakes badly, had memorized which stuffed animals Mia couldn't sleep without. He'd become theirs, and they'd become his. "Breakfast in 5, Elena announced. After they ate, after Mia ran off to draw in her art room, the dream room from her picture, now real, Dante pulled Elena onto the terrace overlooking the grounds. "I have something for you," he said. "Dante, you've already given me. This is different." He handed her a legal document. Elena scanned it, her heart stopping. It was a deed to her old apartment building in Pilsen, purchased through a shell company, with instructions to renovate the units, keep rents affordable, and prioritize single mothers in housing selection. "You bought my old building?" "I bought your old building." Dante's voice was soft. "Because you told me once that you dreamed of affordable housing for families like yours, so now you can run it. Make it the kind of place where people don't have to choose between rent and their children's medication." Elena's eyes filled with tears. This must have cost exactly what it was worth. He pulled her close. "You saved my life, Elena. You gave me a reason to be better. This," he gestured at the deed, "this is me trying to deserve you." "You already do. I'm working on believing that." They stood on the terrace, holding each other, watching Mia play in the garden below. This life, this impossible, improbable, dangerous life was theirs. Elena had given a stranger her coat one frozen January night, and in return, she'd received everything she'd stopped believing in. Safety, love, a future that looked like the dreams her daughter drew in crayon. "I love you," Dante said quietly. "I should have said it before now, but I love you too." Elena kissed him, soft and certain, despite everything, because of everything. Somewhere in Chicago, Dante Caruso's empire continued operating with cold efficiency. But here, in this house with this woman and her daughter, he was just a man who'd been saved by kindness and was spending the rest of his life trying to be worthy of it. And Elena Martinez, the nurse who'd given away her only coat to a freezing stranger, had learned that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is show mercy. Because mercy has consequences. Mercy changes lives. Mercy can save someone or condemn them. But mercy, Elena had discovered, was also the only thing powerful enough to transform monsters into men. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.